All right, let's dive into one of the most dramatic stories of failure you'll find anywhere. We're in the book of Numbers, talking about a journey that should have taken like 2 weeks, but instead it turned into 40 years of wandering in the desert.
So, what on earth turns a quick trip into a 4-decade punishment? How does an entire nation, standing right on the doorstep of their destiny, get sent back into the wilderness? Well, the answer is a powerful mix of faith, fear, and leadership. Let's get into how it all went down.
So picture this. After this incredible escape from slavery in Egypt and a long, hard journey through the desert, the people of Israel are finally there. They are literally at the border of the land they were promised. So to check it out, they send in 12 spies. And the report they bring back? Well, it changes everything.
What comes back are 2 reports that are just polar opposites. I mean, you couldn't get more different. 10 of the spies come back with a message of pure terror. They're talking about giants that make them feel like grasshoppers. It's this national case of imposter syndrome. They even say the land itself just devours its people. But 2 other guys, Joshua and Caleb, they see the exact same thing and come back with total confidence. They say, no, the land is amazing, and, most importantly, the Lord is with us.
So you've got these 2 conflicting stories. Who do the people believe? They go with fear. And the text says they didn't just get a little discouraged, they completely fell apart. They spent the entire night just weeping in total despair.
And that despair, well, it sours really quickly into open rebellion. They start complaining about their leaders, Moses and Aaron, then they're openly saying they wish they'd just died back in Egypt. It gets even worse when they accuse God himself of leading them out there to be slaughtered. And then they actually talk about picking a new leader to take them all the way back to slavery.
Okay, so this has gone way past just being disappointed. This is a full-blown mutiny now. The fear has turned into this mass hysteria, and when things start getting violent, that's when it provokes a response from God.
As all this chaos is exploding, Joshua and Caleb are just horrified. They tear their clothes, which is a powerful sign of grief and anger. They try one last time to get through to the people, shouting this incredible line, "They are our bread." They're basically saying their defenses are nothing. God is on our side. This is a slam dunk.
So how did the people take this passionate, faithful plea? They decided to kill them. The crowd was so worked up, so terrified, that they literally started talking about stoning Joshua and Caleb to death right then and there.
Just as the situation is about to turn deadly, the divine presence appears. And the verdict? It's immediate, and it is severe. God tells Moses that he's done. He's had enough of their faithlessness, and he's going to wipe out the entire nation with a plague and just start over with Moses and his family. Now we come to a huge turning point. Moses steps in to plead for the people, but what he does next is fascinating. He doesn't just beg for mercy. No, he builds this incredibly clever, logical argument based on the one thing he knows God cares about deeply, his own reputation.
Here's his strategy. First, he reminds God of the raw power he showed when he rescued Israel from Egypt. Then, he hits him with a warning. Look, if you destroy them now, all the other nations are going to mock you. They'll say you were strong enough to get them out of Egypt, but you weren't strong enough to get them into the promised land. He's appealing directly to God's honor on the world stage.
And guess what? It works. God agrees not to destroy them. But, and this is a really important principle that shows up here, forgiveness doesn't just erase the consequences. So yeah, the people were saved from being wiped out, but they were still going to be held responsible for what they did. So what does being held responsible look like? It looks like one of the most famous punishments in the entire Bible. A whole generation was about to pay the price for their crisis of faith.
40 years. That was the sentence. 1 year for each of the 40 days the spies were in the land. Instead of moving forward, they were ordered to turn around and just wander in the desert until every last person from that rebellious generation was gone.
So who exactly got this punishment? The judgment was very specific. It applied to every man 20 years and older who was counted in the census. You see, they were considered the Lord's army, and when they refused a direct order to advance, they were held accountable under what was basically military law.
Now, there were a few exceptions, of course. Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies, they were spared. And, get this, everyone under the age of 20, the very children the rebels were so afraid would be captured, they would be the ones to actually inherit the land. The tribe of Levi was also spared since they weren't counted as part of the army. And here's the tragic epilogue to this whole mess. When they hear their punishment, a group of them decides to defy God again.
They think, okay, we'll go invade the land now, completely ignoring Moses' warnings. And without God's help, they are absolutely crushed in battle. It just proved that the problem was never the giants in the land, it was their own lack of faith.
But the story doesn't just end there, in total failure. Even as this 40-year punishment begins, God immediately starts preparing the next generation. The promise wasn't canceled, you see. It was just delayed.
In this really hopeful move, God starts giving them laws for what to do when they finally get into the land. He's talking about sacrifices made from the crops they will one day grow there. It's this concrete promise embedded right into their legal code that's basically saying, don't worry, you will get there, and this is what life will look like.
And the new law makes this really crucial distinction. It separates unintentional mistakes from what it calls sinning with a high hand. That phrase means a deliberate, public, brazen act of defiance, which is exactly what that generation had done. That kind of rebellion was so serious that the punishment was to be cut off from the community completely.
And finally, God gives them a practical tool to help them remember. He tells them to attach tassels to the corners of their clothes. This wasn't a fashion statement. The idea was that every time they looked down and saw those tassels, it would be a physical, visual trigger to remember God's commands and not just follow their own impulses. It was a visible symbol for an unseen commitment.
And that really brings us to our final thought. This story about tassels is ancient, but the idea behind it is timeless. I mean, from wedding rings to sticky notes on a mirror, we all use physical things to remind ourselves of our deeper commitments. So the question is, what are the tassels in our own lives? And how can these visible, physical reminders help shape the unseen things we truly believe in?